Something powerful is happening in the sky right now, and many people can feel it without even knowing why. Over the past few months, there has been a strange heaviness in the air, a quiet pressure that many souls have been carrying. Plans felt delayed, decisions felt unclear, motivation seemed to rise and fall like a tide that never fully came in. Some of you may have felt like life was asking you to pause, to step back, to reconsider everything you thought you knew about your path. And if you've been feeling this, you're not imagining it. Because for months, the planet Jupiter, the planet associated with expansion, wisdom, growth, and opportunity, has been moving in retrograde motion. In astrology, when a planet is retrograde, its energy turns inward. Instead of pushing forward into the world, it asks us to reflect. It asks us to question. It asks us to slow down and revisit parts of our lives that we might have ignored when everything was moving quickly. And Jupiter, being the planet of higher truth and life direction, tends to bring deeper questions when it moves this way. Questions like, am I truly living in alignment with who I am becoming? Am I giving too much of myself to situations that no longer support my growth? Have I been shrinking parts of myself just to keep peace in places that no longer feel like home? For many people watching this right now, the past months have quietly brought these questions to the surface, not always in dramatic ways. Sometimes it was just a feeling, a subtle realization. A moment where you suddenly looked at your life and thought, something here needs to change. But here is what makes this moment so important. On March 11th, Jupiter finally ends its retrograde and begins moving forward again. And when Jupiter moves direct, the energy of expansion that has been paused begins to flow again. The pressure that asked you to reflect slowly begins to lift. The quiet internal lessons start transforming into outward movement. This shift does not always arrive like a thunderstorm. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a door that suddenly unlocks, like clarity that appears where confusion once lived. And many people notice something interesting when Jupiter turns direct. The voice inside them becomes clearer. That inner knowing that may have been whispering for months suddenly becomes stronger. Decisions that once felt impossible start to feel obvious. It is almost as if the universe is saying, you have spent enough time reflecting. Now it is time to move forward with what you have learned. But here is the deeper part of this shift that most people don't talk about. When Jupiter retrograde ends, it often reveals something about how we have been living our lives for others instead of ourselves. During retrograde periods, people often realize just how much energy they have been giving away to expectations, to responsibilities, to relationships that quietly drain their spirit. Many people begin to notice patterns they had ignored before. They see where they have been overextending themselves. They see where they have been saying yes when their heart was asking for a no. They see how often they have chosen comfort over authenticity. And the truth is, Jupiter retrograde has a way of gently exposing these things, not to punish us, but to help us grow. Because Jupiter is not just about luck or expansion. At its core, Jupiter represents wisdom. The kind of wisdom that only arrives when we are willing to look honestly at ourselves and ask difficult questions. For some people, the retrograde period brought emotional clarity. For others, it brought moments of frustration that forced them to rethink their path. Some people felt a sense of isolation or withdrawal, as if life was asking them to step away from the noise of the world and reconnect with their own voice. And if that happened to you, it was not random, because during retrogrades, the universe often slows things down so we can hear what we have been ignoring. You may have noticed that situations in your life began revealing their true nature. Maybe a relationship showed you something you hadn't seen before. Maybe a career path that once felt secure suddenly felt misaligned. Maybe certain goals you were chasing began to feel less meaningful than they once did. These realizations can be uncomfortable, but they are also incredibly valuable because they prepare you for the moment when Jupiter begins moving forward again. And that moment is now approaching. As Jupiter turns direct on March 11th, many people begin to feel a shift in their energy almost immediately. Not always in dramatic ways, but in subtle internal changes. A renewed sense of motivation, a sudden desire to make decisions that had been postponed, a feeling that it is finally time to stop overthinking and start trusting your own direction. This is because Jupiter's direct motion tends to amplify forward movement. Opportunities that once felt blocked begin to open again. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for daily cosmic insights, astrology updates, and spiritual guidance, because the universe always has a message for you. Conversations that once led nowhere suddenly become productive. Ideas that felt uncertain begin to take shape. But perhaps the most important shift is not external. It is internal. Because when Jupiter turns direct after a period of deep reflection, many people experience a quiet but powerful realization. They realize that they cannot keep living the same way they were before. They realize that something inside them has changed. And often, that change involves learning to prioritize themselves in ways they never allowed before. Now, this does not mean becoming selfish. That is a misunderstanding that many people have when they first encounter this kind of awakening energy. Prioritizing yourself does not mean ignoring others. It simply means recognizing that your energy, your time, and your life direction matter just as much as anyone else's expectations. For many people, Jupiter retrograde revealed how often they were placing themselves last, how often they were sacrificing their own growth just to maintain stability or approval. And when Jupiter moves forward again, it often brings the courage to start correcting those patterns. Some people begin setting boundaries they were afraid to set before. Others begin pursuing goals that once felt too risky. Some even begin walking away from situations that have quietly limited their potential for years. And while these decisions can feel intimidating at first, they are often guided by a deeper sense of alignment, because Jupiter is the planet of higher truth. When its energy moves forward, it tends to illuminate paths that resonate with our authentic growth. And this is why many spiritual traditions view Jupiter as a symbol of divine timing. Not everything in life is meant to move forward all the time. Sometimes we are asked to pause, to reconsider, to learn lessons that cannot be rushed. But once those lessons have been integrated, the energy begins to move again. And that movement often feels like relief, like momentum returning after a long period of waiting. For some of you listening right now, this shift may show up as renewed clarity about your purpose. You may suddenly feel more confident about decisions that once felt overwhelming. For others, it may appear as new opportunities that align more closely with the person you have become during the retrograde period. And sometimes, the shift simply appears as a quiet sense of inner peace, a feeling that you are finally ready to move forward without second-guessing yourself at every step. But there is something else about Jupiter turning direct that many people overlook. It does not just open new doors, it also magnifies the direction you choose. This means that the intentions you set during this period can have powerful momentum behind them. If you choose growth, Jupiter amplifies that growth. If you choose wisdom, Jupiter supports that wisdom. In many ways, Jupiter acts like a cosmic magnifier. It expands whatever energy we consciously align ourselves with. This is why moments like this can be so significant. They remind us that we are not just passive observers in our lives, We are participants in the direction our path unfolds. And when the universe offers a moment of renewed momentum, it becomes an invitation to move forward with greater awareness, an invitation to trust the insights that emerged during the quieter months, and perhaps most importantly, an invitation to stop holding yourself back out of fear. Because if the past months have taught you anything, it may be this: you are capable of more alignment than you once believed. You are capable of honoring your own growth. And sometimes the greatest transformation begins with something very simple: the decision to finally listen to yourself. As Jupiter begins moving forward again, the energy surrounding this shift is not about rushing into chaos or forcing dramatic changes overnight. It is about recognizing. Now the next chapter begins. And as this new momentum builds, many people will start noticing small but meaningful signs that they are stepping into a different phase of their journey. Moments of clarity, new conversations, unexpected opportunities, a stronger sense of direction. These are often the first signals that the energy is shifting, but the most powerful change may be something only you can feel. The quiet realization that you are no longer the same person who entered the retrograde months ago. Something inside you has evolved, and as Jupiter moves forward, that evolution begins to express itself in the world around you. The question now is not whether the energy is changing. It is. The question is how you will choose to move with it. And in the next part of this journey, we will explore something even deeper about this shift. Because the end of Jupiter retrograde is not just about movement, it is also about awakening to the truth of what you truly deserve moving forward.